You are now watching Da Meech.
Nintendo has always been known for their wide array of iconic franchises, home to some of the most beloved and well-received games of all time. But with so many series under their belt, it's easy for several of them to slip under the radar. Creative and fun games that unfortunately get lost to time for being too niche or not selling well enough, doomed to only make an occasional Smash Bros. Cameo. Sure, Star Fox and F-Zero might be dead in the water, but even those are more well-known than some of the stuff lying in the deepest crevices of Nintendo's catalog. Elite Beat Agents and Owen Dawn, Sin and Punishment, I'm actually kinda interested in that one. Doshin the Giant, lots of odd stuff that probably won't ever get to see the light of day again. Among these titles, however, was one minuscule little robot that managed to capture the hearts of those who gave it a chance. Chibi Robo. While this guy wasn't as obscure as the other examples I mentioned, he was at no point ever a staple Nintendo series. You wouldn't see him up there with the much more popular icons. Created by the company Skip Ltd, the Chibi Robo series follows a small robot by the same name working to help those in need by cleaning and exploring everyday environments from a tiny perspective, spreading happiness wherever he goes. The series lived exclusively on Nintendo's platform starting from 2005, with the first title being released on the GameCube late into its lifespan. It didn't even come over to the West until early 2006. And let me ask you this, who cared about the GameCube in 2006?
The Nintendo Shit Cube!
Despite pretty average sales, the game managed to get a couple of sequels on the DS and 3DS up until its last entry in 2015, which hasn't been followed up on since. My personal exposure to the series is very limited. I watched my brother play a lot of Photo Finder when we were kids. I specifically remember suggesting a few things for him to take pictures of, and I had a lot of fun, even if I wasn't the one actually playing the game. You know, it's the same appeal Earthbound and Persona fans get. The only game in the series I actually played was... So I think we can say I've never played a Chibi Robo game before, but I've always been interested in the first game. I freaking love the weird GameCube charm that titles like this exude, so I'd say today's the day I finally pick up a copy and play it for myself.
Oh my goodness!
What do you mean a niche game released late into a niche console's lifespan becomes a rare commodity? Well, luckily for me, we have an alternative. The Sanderson family is celebrating their daughter, Jenny's birthday. Her father gets her a Chibi Robo as a present, a cleaning robot that's currently very popular in the country. Essentially, this man just got his kid a vacuum cleaner disguised as a toy as a birthday present. As Chibi Robo, with the help of our assistant Telly, we're tasked with doing enough good deeds to become #1 on the Chibi Robo rankings and becoming a super Chibi Robo. The rest of the story is really just helping the family out through their struggles. My wife is mad at me, but don't worry about it. Yeah, I like that attitude. You also end up meeting a variety of characters around the household that have their own stories to tell, most of which are completely optional, but grant you with more happy points and moolah should you go out of your way to do them. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's actually talk about the basic gameplay. Alright, so most games are supposed to be a form of escapism. What's so great about the medium is being able to do things you can't do in real life, like jumping around wondrous lands, solving ancient mysteries, making friends, being financially stable, and shooting people, all very unrealistic things. So you walk into Chibi Robo and the first thing you're tasked with doing is cleaning and picking up other people's trash. Yeah. Now, bro, I don't know about you, but I don't want to clean up my own house, so why would I want to turn on a video game only to clean someone else's? This place is absolutely disgusting. There's so much trash ranging from food crumbs, candy wrappers, soda cans in places that don't make sense, multiple copies of Yoshi's Crafted World, and piss stains everywhere. Picking up trash and cleaning are two methods to gaining happy points to help you climb the rankings, which getting to #1 is not only the end goal, but reaching certain thresholds gets you battery expansions. You may have noticed this number in the bottom right corner. Contrary to popular belief, that is not your body count, but rather your battery. Using your tools to clean or traverse the environment and doing the simple task of walking around drains your battery. Should you run out, you die and are forced to go back to the Chibi house with some moolah lost. Thankfully, there are a number of power outlets strewn throughout the household that will restore your power and act as save points. points. You'll want to visit these as often as you can, as not only can your power get really low in a moment's notice, but also it'll be really funny to see the look on the Sandersons' faces whenever they get their next electric bill. Early on, your battery is pretty low, so you'll have to go back and forth to the nearest outlet often, but I think that's fine because you also don't have much ground to cover at the moment either. So you can spend your time at the start cleaning to get enough happy points for a few rank ups and some more batteries and meet other characters. As the game progresses, the cleaning thing, you know, your whole purpose for being here gets sidelined in favor of exploration and puzzle solving, and thank the Lord for that, because I didn't buy this game to clean stuff. Wait, I didn't buy this game at all. Early on in the game, you begin to hear strange noises coming from the family's basement, and so of course you go to investigate. Only to find the foyer is being guarded by a bunch of Humpty Dumpty army soldiers, so of course the only logical course of action here is to dive headfirst into the— oh my god, oh no, it's so over! Well, after dying, I decided to do what any rational human being would do and try again, and surprisingly enough, that didn't work. So I bought a gun, and that didn't work either because this thing must have been made in the UK or something, so then I found a mug and used it to finally get into the basement. There we find an out-of-commission Giga Robo, an older, much bigger version of Chibi Robo, but it went unused after its extreme energy consumption proved to be too costly for the Sandersons. Chibi Robo, being the good low-natured robot he is, makes it his task to fix up Giga Robo and recharge his battery using moolah out of his own wallet to reactivate the big guy. And that's our second major task of the game, and probably the most important one, as getting the items to fix Giga Robo up is tied to story progression. However, before we talk about the main story, I feel like it's necessary to talk about everything else surrounding this game, as if you tried to progress to the main story from this point, you'd find that your battery life alongside the items at your disposal as of now make it a lot more difficult to get a lot accomplished at the moment. Plus, you need a whopping 10,000 moolah to recharge the battery when you're currently picking up 10 in the overworld and the trash bonuses aren't giving you much more. Yeah, it's America. Giga Robo is more of a long-term goal, and you should spend more time finding other things to do to help you make progress towards that end goal. And that's where the real fun of Chibi Robo begins to show itself. So the game has a day-night cycle that starts out at shifting every 5 real-world minutes, not counting cutscenes or talking. Depending on the time of day, you'll get to witness different events. For example, for most of the game, the Sanderson family is only active during the day. Mr. Sanderson spends all of his time watching Fox News, so that speaks volumes about him. Jenny's busy having the frog in her, and Miss Sanderson stays in the kitchen where she belongs. During the night, on the other hand, most of the toys around the house become active and you can now talk to them. You'll meet a variety of characters, including Drake Redcrest, a Space Ranger action figure fighting for justice, the funktastic Funky Phil, this knockoff Lego dinosaur named Dinah, and this mummy toy stowed away in a shoebox under Jenny's bed. That's really creative. I wonder what his name is. These characters all have their own fun side stories that yield happy points and moolah if you go out of your way to complete them. These involve exploring the environment to find items for them and puzzle solving. You see, Chibi Robo is a puzzle adventure game more than anything. And that makes sense when you consider that this game was originally conceived as a point-and-click adventure game, as this sort of has a lot of the same qualities as a point-and-click game. I'll talk more about the side quests later, but anyway, what makes Chibi Robo different is that the puzzles themselves aren't complex, and most of the time it's pretty obvious what items go where. The real fun comes from getting from point A to point B. There is a bunch of platforming in this game, but not in the general sense. A Chibi Robo can't jump on his own, you have to hug against an object to jump on top of it, and the same goes for getting down. You'll have to use the propeller to safely cross gaps and get back down to lower platforms. Otherwise you could slip and fall and oh! What's so fun about the platforming of Chibi Robo is the environment itself. You're viewing an average American home from the view of a 10-centimeter robot, so because of that, this game really makes you think outside of the box so that you can get to where you need to be. You can climb up handles or pull out drawers to make platforms, but I think my favorite has to be just finding random things to climb on. There were so many moments where I was scratching my head trying to figure out how to reach an area that had an item I needed, and then I asked myself, hey wait, can I climb on this? And sure enough, it worked. You can look at random objects and envision them as ladders or ropes to use. The sense of scale is great too. Any simple climbing task quickly elevated into a monumental platforming adventure. It always surprised me just how high up you can go in some of these rooms. It takes ordinary places and turns them into these jungle gyms for you to explore. Now, while climbing up and down rooms and trying to find ways to get around is very fun, it can become a little tiresome having to climb this stuff over and over again, because these will take you far away from any outlet, so you have to be sure not to overexert yourself or you could run out of battery before making it back from another climb. That I don't mind as much, because trying to optimize the way you spend your power and how much you can get away with before going back for a charge is fun in of itself, and there are plenty of spots where you can open shortcuts to make it back to areas you've already been to with less hassle. But those shortcuts only cover so much. I probably climbed through this spot in the bedroom like 20 times the whole playthrough because it's the only way you can get to certain parts of the room. It was fun the first couple of times, but it really began to wear thin after a little bit. Just as a small tip, be sure to pick up your plug when running around because holding it actually makes you go quicker. I know letting your cord dangle should be a sign of pride, but honestly, that's kind of gross. You'll explore the room searching for key items for puzzles or side quests, and also you can find these chibi doors that you can open using some of your battery. Inside you'll find a lot of moolah, so if you ever see one of these things in the distance, then be sure to make Jocko proud and go open it. Because early on, you're going to need every last dime you can get. Back at the chibi house, you can purchase a variety of tools to help you complete tasks, participate in minigames, and plus you need a bunch of moolah for Giga Robo anyway. You can also buy these timers that extend the amount of time you get to explore the house for each half day. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this earlier, but you only get 5 minutes to start out with, and that's not a lot of time to get things done. 10 to 15 gives you a lot more wiggle room, but the odd thing is that buying a new timer replaces the old one, so if you want a different amount of time, you'll have to buy it back, for a cheap price mind you. The reason you'd want to repurchase a shorter timer is because at the start there's no way to end a half day, so if there's literally nothing you can do for the rest of that time, you're just stuck waiting for the clock to run out. Therefore it'd make more sense to have a shorter timer. It's kind of a dumb design choice, but thankfully a little later on into the game you can do a side quest to find a piece of cloth for Jenny's mom to make into a pair of pajamas for Chibi Robo. There are several of these costumes throughout the game, most of which are just used once for side quests and serve no other purpose. I mean, I like these a lot because they look goofy and kinda cute, and plus they typically get reactions out of other characters, which is always nice to see. Anyway, the pajamas are the most useful because pressing Z with them equipped immediately ends today. Buy yourself a 15-minute timer and you won't have to worry about time again. Alright, so back to the chibi shop. You can also use scrap to build utilibots to assist you with traversal. The teleporters are just there to help you get up and down stairs faster. However, you will need the bridges and ladders to help you gain access to previously unreachable areas. Now, as for where you get the scrap, well, when you're viewing the news, you're informed about some mechanical spiders called the Spidors. Oh, that's a real knee slapper, huh? After that point, if you see a shit stain on the floor, well, you know who's responsible.
Oh my god, I'm pooping.
No, not him. So you'll come across a group of Spidors every once in a while, accompanied by a track that's very loud compared to the rest of the game. Sometimes I would be walking around at night with no music playing, and then all of a sudden, as you'd expect, you just pull out the chibi blasters that kill them, and then harvest their scrap. And I know this might sound stupid, but I actually like these quick, simple fights. Something about the way Chibi Robo slips around as I'm trying to swiftly kill all of them, you know, it's just like, it's all like... One of the best aspects about this game has to be the feel of discovery. The opening hours of the game see you exploring the house, trying to gain access to all of the different rooms. The progression is extremely good. It feels like every time you enter an area, there's always something new going on, such as meeting a new character or watching old ones interact with one another. A lot of these guys are completely irrelevant to the plot, but have their own stories to be told. These side quests are probably my favorite thing about the game, and you're doing yourself a great disservice if you aren't going out of your way to do them. And it's kind of hard to ignore them anyway, since you'll usually just stumble across these while you're trying to do something else, yet they still feel like a very natural part of the game. You'll get the opportunity to explore parts of the house you wouldn't otherwise, searching for items, or you get to play mini games to earn happy points. Okay, so this isn't a big deal, but like, if you guys don't want to know how these play out, then you can, skip over this part, because I think this is a major part of the game's appeal. So if you're interested in playing this game for yourself, then go ahead and skip over this section. Alright, so to highlight some of these, first up we've got the Free Rangers, the guys who gunned me down a few days ago, but we're on good terms now. Their side quest involves going through training with them to help them rescue one of their men who was captured by a ferocious, hairy beast. Cow the dog. What would they do if it was poop? Puma. You do all these training minigames with them, but a bunch of the members defect from the group due to the strenuous training. But with Chibi-Robo's help, they manage to confront Tao, and even the old members of the crew come to assist you with the mission. It's really simple gameplay-wise, but in terms of story, it's a satisfying conclusion. Then there's my favorite character, who just so happens to share a name with the greatest platforming mascot of our time, Mort the Mummy. Mort's in love with Princess Pitts the doll, but can't bear to confess that to her due to his frightening appearance. However, with some help from Chibi-Robo, and after seeing how brave and kind he truly is, the two finally fall in love. I know it seems out of character, because we all know the one true Mort would have no issue raising a girl, but I still really like this side quest regardless of that continuity error. I think the best comparison I can make with these side stories would have to be the side quest from Majora's Mask. What made that game so great was the excellent world building and the characters that inhabited that world. They all had their own stories to tell and struggles to overcome, which made for far more compelling side quests than what other games do. Like, go find 10 sandwiches in the McDonald's parking lot. Now, granted, I definitely wouldn't say Chibi-Robo is on the same level as Majora's Mask, but if you enjoyed the side content in that game, then I'm certain you'll enjoy this as well. I'm also tempted to say this is a similar gameplay loop to Moon Remix RPG Adventure, who the director of this game, Kenichi Nishi, was a designer on. But I can't say for sure because I've never played Moon and only ever watched a friend play a bit of it. You know, Persona fan logic. Also, apparently Chibi-Robo Dog was Moondog also. That's pretty neat. I'd go as far as to say it was a cool bit. If there's one issue I have with Chibi-Robo, it's that while progression is very good and helps this slower paced game retain my attention, it falls into the same trapping that just about every puzzle adventure game I've played falls victim to, that being the occasional unclear progression methods. But in this game's case, it's probably the stupidest I've ever seen. It doesn't have any sort of obtuse or dumb puzzle that you'd only figure out through trial and error. No, instead the game just doesn't always convey whether or not you're doing the right thing. So we got Funktastic Philip here, who poops out this little seed after a performance, and you overhear Dinah talking about how you can grow the seed by spraying it with Phil's sweat. And luckily for us, but not so luckily for any minors in the audience, Phil's a Smash player, so we've already got the sweat covered. So I find a good place to plant the seed, and then I spray it with the... Oh. I guess it didn't work. Okay, so I try again from a bunch of different angles and nothing is happening. The seed isn't growing, the soil isn't getting wet. I'm literally aiming directly at the spot where I planted the seed and it's not working. So I leave and try again later, and it turns out that I was doing the right thing the whole time and just needed to spray it multiple times. Okay, well, if that's the case, then maybe have the soil get wet or visibly show the seed sprouting and getting bigger when I spray it. Because as is, I thought I was just wasting my time and more importantly, my battery. Then there's the case with Mort and the Nectar Seed. Alright, so for one, I bought a Nectar Seed because Krusty Bear over here needs to get his crack on. So anyway, now I look for a place to plant it, and I find a nice patch of dirt in the kitchen. But then Telly says no, and for some reason we just let him have a say in things even though his opinion has never mattered. So I look for another spot, but that's not fine either apparently. Okay, well, what about here? Okay, so you can actually just take nectar straight from one of the flowers already growing outside and spray it on Sunshine, but anyway, I still need the seed for more. He wants to grow a flower for Princess Pitts, you know, rizz her up and stuff. And I'm finally shown a good place to plant the seed, because these other ones just, well, I don't know. The only issue now is... By all means, this should work, but it just wasn't. And I could get it from the outside for some reason though, but I still couldn't plant the seed afterwards. No joke, I literally looked up a video guide just to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong, and guess what? What the fuck? I was doing that the whole time. Oh, whatever. Man, I don't want to look up guides for games like this. Part of the fun is figuring things out on my own and seeing what happens as a result of my actions. Having to look up a walkthrough because I was 0.002 shidometers off from the hitbox is dumb and robs me of the satisfaction of getting things done without an outside source. There was another issue I ran into later where I had to get this block for Dinah. The last one I was missing was being held onto by Tao, who'll trade it for a bone. The problem is that bones randomly spawn, and I'd been giving them to him for happy points earlier. However, now I needed one for a key item, and all I could do was walk around a house hoping to find one and going to sleep if there wasn't one. At this point in the game, I'd done just about everything else I could do outside of looking for more doors that I didn't need the money from anymore, so the sense of discovery was kinda gone at that point, and it got really boring checking all the spawn positions after a little bit. Also, in order to get the ghost costume, you have to take Peter Griffin's advice and
Kill yourself!
just like, maybe I'd do that if I was playing a bad game, but not Chibi Robo. This game is actually good. Plus, I'm pretty sure you have to use the trauma outfit to get it, and you already get the trauma outfit by dying beforehand, so why would they lock another costume behind dying? I should clarify, none of these issues are big enough to knock the whole experience down for me. They're minor annoyances at worst. And for all I know, I'm wondering if the whole Mort Nectar Seed thing was an emulator issue. I mean, it could have been. You don't know. Now, here's something I usually don't talk about. The sound design of this game definitely deserves mentioning. You can tell it's going to be something special as soon as you hit the title screen. As if the setting and characters weren't unique enough, the game is oddly pleasant in the sound department. Every character has a unique sound effect for whenever they're speaking. Think of how Banjo-Kazooie does it, and the difference here being that the sounds they make are so incomprehensible, yet fitting at the same time, if that makes any sense. Did you just say the N-word? What I really love though is how when Chibi Robo does literally anything, he has this pleasant melody that fits perfectly with the music. It's part of the reason why cleaning is as satisfying as it is. A cool detail is that when you pick up your plug, the music speeds up because you move faster while holding your plug. In fact, this helped me confirm that I was running quicker by doing this. The menus have these weird clicks and boops to them. Apparently some of these sounds were made with human voices. If I had the wager guess, it was probably these. Like I said, sound design isn't something I typically bring up, but in this case I think it deserved a mention. Putting so much effort into making the audio of your game sound so different from everything else helps to give the end product more soul and help it stand out amongst the billion other games out there. You start appreciating stuff like that a lot more when you've played as many games as I have. With all that covered, let's get back to this game's plot. Now, from the basic introduction I gave you earlier, you're probably under the impression that this game about a walking Roomba would have writing that would make Shakespeare pee his pants, and you'd be right. Again, progression and discovery is one of this game's strongest attributes, so if you're interested in all of that, then I suggest that you skip this next segment. You know, the story isn't anything that deep, but it's more satisfying to go through it yourself. You feel me? So let's catch back up with the Sandersons. As you spend more time interacting with the family and helping them out, you begin to learn that the family dynamic is not good. Mr. Sanderson has been out of a job for a while, and you find out that he keeps spending his money on toys. It came as a surprise to me. I mean, he certainly looks like a Redditor, but he didn't really strike me as one. The missus, stuck with cleaning the house every day, isn't very pleased with her husband's spending habits and work ethic, or lack thereof. Not too long into the game, she becomes fed up with how dysfunctional the family has become and locks herself in the bedroom. And she eventually decides that she wants to get a divorce. Yeah, that's pretty sudden. I wonder if any other Nintendo game has ever tried to tackle this subject matter.
I want a divorce.
Huh.
What?
Yeah, maybe don't talk about it. I think it's handled fine here, though we barely see anything come from this. It's just mentioned once before the rest of the family kicks into high gear. Well, Jenny's dad anyway. Stupid kid doesn't do anything even though she got freaking roasted in her mom's letter. I've seen some people overblow the idea of divorce even being mentioned, and that's probably because it's something that's seen in very few games, targeted at kids or otherwise. I don't think it's out of place in a game like this. I personally think it's important for stories with cheery and upbeat tones to have a strong down-to-earth conflict, or at least a bit of edge, a smidge of cynicism in its dialogue, because if they don't, then the game just feels like a half-hearted attempt at being wholesome that ends up carrying no weight. I just really wanted to make fun of New Horizons again. Now, I also don't think Chibi Robo says anything profound regarding this topic, but I see no issue with it being a conflict in the plot. Anyway, divorce is for losers, so instead I'm gonna go outside and summon aliens. That is a thing you actually do. Hero was mistakenly thinking I was supposed to help the family reconcile by doing chores around the house, But no, you're supposed to piece together clues to use your radar to get some aliens to show up in the backyard. The aliens inform you that they were friends of Giga Robo and that they want to see him again. The problem with that being that he's more dead than this franchise. But that's okay, because we can later get on their UFO and against their wishes activate this device that turns out to be a time machine. I accidentally let Telly come with me, so I took him back to the past, not to play the shitty games that suck ass, but to do something far more important. We end up going to a time when Giga Robo was still active. We're barely here for any more than like 5 minutes. What's really interesting is this briefcase here. Now, this briefcase was something you could find much earlier in the game, but we had no means of opening it. But now we know the code, so we can go back to the present and open it and find Giga Robo's missing leg. But before we get the chance to grab it, the Spiders and their queen appear and begin to overtake the whole house. The family regroups and Mr. Sanderson informs everyone that when he still had his old robotics job that he designed the Spiders to be Chibi Robo's friends, but the company decided that the Spiders would be better products if they were assholes. It's never explained how this benefited them in any way, but it was this action that made Sanderson quit his job, and he lied to his family saying he was fired because he was ashamed at what he had created. You can actually see this on a news report earlier in the game. You're just not told until now that Mr. Sanderson originally made them. So to make things right, he tunes up Chibi Robo's blaster to help him fight back against the souped up spiders, and I know this whole thing escalated really quickly, but that's kinda how it is and I don't really care. What else are you supposed to do for a finale of a game where the main gameplay consists of room service? Plus, as simplistic as it is gameplay-wise, the music during the spider fights is freaking killer, dude! We also get to do a final battle against the Queen, who literally throws everything, including the fridge, at you. I appreciate the attempt at a boss fight. I mean, sure, it's really basic. All you really do is just dodge your attacks and then fire back. I mean, what were you expecting? Something along the lines of... So the family is saved and we get the leg back, but most importantly, I found that one frog ring I was searching everywhere for beforehand, and really, that's what matters most. Now, while the family has reconciled over their misunderstandings, we're not quite at the end yet. We've still got a big fella to power on. Once we do, we bring Giga Robo outside to finally reunite him with his alien friends. They reveal that Giga Robo saved them from crashing their UFO a long time ago. To repay him for his kindness, they gave Giga Robo 2 wishes. His first was to give life to all the toys around the house, explaining why they're alive, and the second was to grant all Giga Robos infinite power to stop the energy crisis. The latter wish they couldn't fulfill at the time, so they left with the intention of returning with the means to grant it later, and now they can. Giga Robo and Chibi Robo are now both granted infinite power so they can be with the Sandersons forever, and the game ends. But don't worry, there's still plenty to do after that point. And the best part is that regardless of how many happy points you had prior to completing the game, you get set to rank 1 after the credits. And now you also have infinite power. This seems like something that would be a 100% completion reward, but making it a post-game reward instead is actually genius game design. That way you can do collectible and side quest cleanup to your heart's content, so now they can reserve an actually good reward for 100%. And that was Chibi Robo, a pleasant, charming surprise from beginning to end. I would love to play the other game sometime in the future. I've heard the Japanese-only one on the DS is particularly great, and I'm very excited to play more of this series. Though, the future of it isn't that bright. You see, this game wasn't a big commercial success, especially in the West, possibly due to the gameplay style and it being released so late into the console's lifespan. Even then, the rest of the games didn't fare much better, with the first 3DS title, Photo Finder, being a cheap digital-only title. The unprofitable nature of the series led Skip to being left with one last chance to make the series successful, and in an attempt to appeal to a wider range of people, they made... yeah, a 2D platformer that, well, you probably know the story of this one. Chibi Robo Ziplash, which released in 2015, alienated fans of the series and failed to appeal to outsiders, so it wasn't winning anyone's favor. It's a clunky, slow-paced, very, very boring tofu-ass 2D platformer on a console that had far better options. So yeah, of course it didn't sell well, and ever since then the series has been dormant, and it's been widely speculated that Skip has gone out of business. There's no official statement yet, but considering that they haven't done anything since Ziplash, I think it's a fair assumption to say that Chibi Robo is dead in the water. Or better yet, I guess you could say they pulled the plug. I'm sure nobody's ever said that before. The last mention the little guy ever got was this random unexplained tweet on Nintendo's Twitter account back in early 2018. Some people thought it was a teaser for an announcement of a new entry, but nothing ever came of it. It doesn't mean anything. This was years after Ziplash, so it's not an advertisement or anything. Maybe the social media manager just really wanted to mess with all two of the Chibi Robo fans or something? Man, I've got this terrible habit of getting into games that are either niche or dead, and it really hurts with Chibi Robo because I feel like a game like this would have been perfect on the Switch. But I guess I'm used to not having good things at this point. The series deserved more time and a much better send-off, but I've still got other games I can play. And at least he's actually remembered. You know, there's an actual semblance of a fan base for these games, and that's a lot more than you can say for a bunch of other smaller Nintendo-affiliated IPs. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see each other again.